Your glasses. Please remove your glasses. Clasp your fingers, cross your legs, and close your eyes. And then slowly focus on your breath, your slow, natural breath.
Recording in progress.
In the final 30 seconds, we have got 10 seconds more. Slowly unclasp your fingers. Bring your palm to your eyes. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. You may open your beautiful eyes now. Namaste. Putting my camera. Namaste and my humble pranams to Brahma Shri Pita Mahapatriji and Swarnamala Patriji and all the masters gathered here today. In today's Swadyaya session, we will start off a new book called The Buddha's Wife, that is a path of awakening together, and is written by Janet Surrey and also Samuel Sam. And without further ado, I'd like to call upon Master Thila to kickstart the book with the letter to the reader and also the introduction. Over to you, Master Thila.
Thank you, Rajesh. My humble pranams to Brahma Shri Patriji and Swarnamala Patriji, and to all the pyramid masters who have gathered here today. Thank you so much for joining us today for this wonderful book. I would like to start this book with one quotation that is given by, presumably by Yasodhara. She said, "What might be of benefit, what teaching and practices offered, had two or more sat together under the Bodhi tree." Okay, we all know that Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, solitude. Is my understanding, yeah? She's what I understand is, what if more than one person sat? The whole teaching would have been different, because she is here talking about community relationship, healing of community. So based on that, this is my understanding. I might be wrong, yeah, but this is what I understand from this book. Okay, here, what they are telling us is they are inviting all of us to read this book as a community, to understand the life from the perspective of Yasodhara. As she sees, as she tells a story and inspiring earth with listening, and for us, for the benefit of inspiring us with listening, as the writers are telling us, to benefit us, and through us to benefit the other people who are with us. So from the beginning, they are talking about relations, and community. Okay, we all know Siddhartha is the prince. He left the palace the day Rahul, the son, was born, without saying goodbye. And just imagine the pain or the frustration, the grief, everything she must have gone through. A young mother who has loved her husband so much, when she wakes up and to realize that the father of the child is missing, what she would have gone through. Okay, just put yourself in that situation. How would you come out? Even I can't imagine myself in the situation. I think I would have been broken. But she had the right community of people with us, with her, guiding her, teaching her, and all those things. And now her life has become a big lesson for all of us to understand this. Okay. Yes, but as Yasodhara, we know that she is a she she has the support of her stepmother, Queen Prajapati, and the father-in-law. And how did she come up from this grievance, abandonment, everything? We will be learning about this in the book. Okay, so Siddhartha, in this book, what they say, Siddhartha only came to see her 7 years after he left the palace. And here also they said that she refused to go and see him. So he gets to go and see her. But she kind of guided the son to go and talk to the father about her inheritance. So here, what they are saying is the community that surrounded her has given her, has actually taught her a lot of things. That one incident has taught her a lot of wisdom, of courage, of learning. And how she came about is through the motivation, the women who was beside her, teaching her how, giving her guidance and all those things. Okay, so, and her story also talks about here the story talks about her, how after a few years, she left the palace. She went and joined Buddha as part of the nun. But Buddha refused to accept them twice. He said he refused to accept them. Ananda was actually the middleman asking Buddha for the permission for them to join, for the ladies. That means stepmother Prajapati, Yashoda, and a group of women to join. But he refused. He said no. But twice he said no, and the third time, what they did was they didn't listen to him. They shaved their head, the hair, shaved their hair, and then they walked about more than 100 miles, and they went to his sangha. And Buddha had no choice but to accept. And here he said he agreed with a special condition, but here they didn't say what is the special condition. So Prajapati became enlightened here, and Yashodhara, by the name of Bhavat Kachana, was known for her wisdom and achieved her enlightenment. So how did Yashodhara endure the pain and humiliation of this abandonment? Okay, so this is the story, vital story of the community that we need to understand. So how did the spiritual transformation happen in her? So how did her relationship with the survival of with the person who was beside her, all this happened? So these are the things that we will be understanding in this book. Okay. Buddha is thought to have lived around 450 BC. And according to the Pali canon, 100 years later, only then Yashodhara was mentioned as the mother of Rahul Mata. So earlier than that, there was nothing about Yashodhara. So there's no written text, nothing. So there's just a story. So story also was told by Therigatha, early Buddhist text, Therigatha, that compiles stories and poetry of the Buddhist nun. Okay, so they got some understanding from there. And Mahayana texts, which describe Yashodhara and Prajapati as goddess with special powers. And in this story, the writers are actually seeing her as a human being. So, and they want to elaborate the story based on the survey of the historical material that they have gathered. Okay, but I just want you all to understand this story of Yashodhara is not an actual story. Okay, this is an imagined recreation of Yashodhara life by the writers. Always remember that this is not actual story, but recreated by the writers. So, what is the story is telling us? The story is actually offering a doorway of potential spiritual maturation and the awakening of wisdom and compassion, often through living deeply with others. So it talks about being in a community and how you heal in a community. And then it talks about the writers tells them as they go through all this historical thing, they could feel a growing connection with the fictional Yashodhara and themselves. And they felt that telling a story is actually, they call this a relational path, that we should all take a relational path in our spiritual development. And they say storytelling is a powerful tool. We all know storytelling is a powerful tool. Okay, that's how our stories and our Puranas all came about. So they are using the same method to tell her story. And why they are telling this story? Because they feel this story is actually very relevant to the time now, where we are going through a lot of emotional pains and all those things. And here they talked about hidden pathways. Hidden pathways, they meant from here is, what I understand is actually, our community has been a matriarchal community. That means women have always bonded together to bring about a community, be it growing the children, taking care of the house, bonding with each other in terms of grief and everything. We all will bond together. and that's where we get the strength. On your own as a solitude person, you don't get that strength to come up from this kind of grief that you go through. But as a community, he said this is something powerful. Probably they are talking in terms of the Western culture, which they don't see this. But in our Eastern culture, we know that this kind of support was there. So this is the hidden thing that they were talking about. Okay, before we talk about going into this book, we must talk about the writers themselves. Why did these people chose to write this? Why? Because they, both of them, went through the pain of separation. They went through lots of problems in their life. Okay, so here is Janet and Sam. Okay, these are the writers using their nickname. Yeah. So Sam is actually, both of them met during the freshman year in a college somewhere in Boston. So Sam wanted a career in medicine, and he was actually studying in Harvard Medical School. Jen was actually doing psychology in a local graduate school. So they were actually both passionately in love. They were communicating everything. Everything was going fine until Sam one day decided that he wanted to go and apply for a scholarship in England. He wants to go and further his studies, which was actually Janet didn't like it, didn't like the separation, but they didn't talk about it. He insisted on going, she insisted on him not going, but somehow or other, he just left. When they left, they became separate. They both of them went separate ways. So what Janet did was she went to, both of them felt the loneliness, the separation, everything, because when you're so much in love, when you never leaves, there is some kind of a gap in your heart. Okay. So Janet, what she did, she went to politics of women liberation. She went and joined them, and she learned the freedom growing up with women, the sense of sisterhood, solidarity, being in a community, and all those things. And then she went back to psychology school, and then she actually did a paper on a gender differences in depression. Okay, so she is actually, not only that, she did a 12 part full of Buddhism, I think, and they were actually more into community, learning everything about it. So this is Janet's one. Sam, meanwhile, what happened was he was feeling the loneliness. He was actually having a miserable time in England, and he couldn't concentrate in his studies, and he found that actually he didn't like it. So what he started doing, he started writing poems. He started writing poems, journals, plays, and all those things. And one day he told his lecturer, "I'm quitting because this is not my life." And he came back to US. So when he came back to US, both of them reconnected again. Janet and Sam, they reconnected. But because of the pain, the remembrance, everything, they were actually not going through a wonderful life. Okay, they had so much of problem and all those things. And there was a time when Janet was going into a spiritual path. He was going into his career, writing and all those things. And they used to have lots of argument and all those things. One day Janet wanted to go to a spiritual retreat in Belgium, I think, and it is the time for them to either to split forever or to meet up as a team and to live the path of togetherness. So what happened was, that is the time that Janet, Sam realized that this is the way I want to be with her, and he volunteered to go with them. So that's where their spiritual journey started. And they patched up the relationship. A lot of things started happening. They started writing a book, and they wrote a well-known book. The book they wrote is "We Have to Talk: Healing Dialogues Between Men and Women." So they have all the basic understanding of how to heal together as a community, all those things. So that's how these people are. So why they want to write this book? That's the question, $1 million question, right? Because they want us to understand that using Yeshua method, I think they have given a lot of method in the book too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I've not come across that. So using that, actually, we can use the method to heal ourselves. So in this kind of community, a lot of healing needs to be done. So what they're saying is, I'll talk about it. Okay. So Buddha's wife offers readers all their experiences and the work actually done in coming up with the book. Okay. So they call it, this is a pure, fully meditative part to the relationship. So we all experience pain and suffering in our relationship, in families, work, and all these things. But what matters is how we hang on to all this disconnect, how we stay energized and faithful in our shared vision, so we can keep moving on. So these are the ways that they're going to talk about it in the book later. So what they are telling is, they're inviting all of us to sit in a circle, like sit circle, keeping in mind that we and the many others, the we means they, they and the many others are with us. They're telling that you're not alone in your problem. We are there with you. So we will guide you. Okay. So it gives a deep glimpses of good communication and deep community kind of feeling. So it's telling us being part of the evolution of a relational awakening. So if you are, they're asking this question, if not together, how? So I always believe that being in a community, helping each other, and all those things really help. So that's the reason that I think we all started with compassionate listening. So we wanted to listen to all these problems. I won't say problems, of all the challenges that we are listening, and to tell the person that we are going through the challenges, you are not alone. We are together. But at this moment, that the compassionate listening is on hold, because I think we are all actually needing all the energy to regroup ourselves and to come out as a better person. That's the reason that we are going into Swadyaya and lots of meditation. We will start our compassionate listening somewhere next month. Okay, I am actually digressing from this. Okay, so interaction. So we all know that Siddhartha left Siddhartha Gautama Buddha is actually the son of the king Suddhodana from Sakyan clan, and somewhere they came from somewhere at the foothills of Himalaya. Now it's called Nepal. Okay, so he just left his wife at the age of 29. Okay, so when he walked, his path is called path of who goes forth. That's what they tell her. Her story, Yashodra's story, we don't know her story from her perspective. Nobody knows her because there's no historical things about it. So this is all based on their interpretation. Okay, so Buddha's wife story talks about her transformation through her realization of deep community and through active participation in relationship with her mother-in-law Prajapati, father-in-law Suddhodana, son Rahula, own mother, network of servants, friends, and people who in the palace, and then also the community of nuns, the Buddhist community. This is a story, her story is called The Path of She Who Stays. So you see, he is the path of he who goes forth, and hers is the path of she who stays. Okay, so they say this is a timely and much needed guidance for us in the contemporary living. We need this kind of guidance now. Okay, Yashodhara speaks of her path of right relations. Okay, right here we talk about right relations, yeah, of growing awareness, not alone but together. Always remember, you're not alone. Together, so we are fully engaged with others. So this book, they actually say, telling it can actually heal relationships. So every one of us should start reading this book. Okay, the seed of relationship part, relational part is practical in the lives of ordinary people. Okay, it's all ordinary people. Yeah. So I'm going to take some time, Rajesh, because it's quite long. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All this thing I need to tell you because so that you can understand what is this book is actually about. And it talks about, in this part, the movement is into relation. Okay, into how a person being a part of something, greater than oneself. So, when you're hurting, and you're alone, don't feel that you're alone. Open up, open up, ask for help. There will be somebody there to listen to you. That's what they're telling us. So the a lineage of wisdom that Yashoda got is through the women. We already talked about the women, how she got the wisdom from, and then okay, the writer says both Buddha and Yashoda, both of them walked a spiritual path. Okay, here Buddha walked alone, solitude they call it, and here she walks through community. Okay, both are necessary for a fully realized path. That's what our PSM is telling us. Take a middle path. We are in the middle path. Sometimes we need solitude. We need to come out from being in the community. We need to be alone to go in, listen to what is happening with us. Sometimes we have to open up, be in the community. We have to take part in community with everything. No matter what kind of problem that you are facing, you cannot just leave everything and run away. That's not the way. That's what our spiritual path is telling us. This is what they are telling also. Both are necessary for a realized path. Okay. So here, the Buddha wife begins by the Buddha's book. Wife begins with two books. Yeah, one is Yashodra's story, where she is recreating the events of her life along with her attendant, and both in the community within the royal palace and in the Buddhist Sangha. Okay, so she's playing a central role. So her power is actually comes from her relationship with Prajapati. Prajapati, you all know, the mother-in-law. I think she is another a woman full of wisdom who has passed on wisdom. So with all the sufferings and everything, so this is where she has come up with a relational path. Okay, the book talks about her wisdom of a path, how her teachings is very visible today. Okay, so we can apply these teaching to a lot of problems that we are facing. So the problems they have said, you can have relational losses, or breakups, or parenting, caregiving, pain of illness, grief over betrayal, loss of loved one, domestic violence, whatever problem that you are having, we can use her method to solve this. Okay. Another thing is what they're telling us is another thing I will. Okay, we all know that the Theravedic tradition died somewhere 1,000 years ago, and Yashodra's story was completely like wiped out from that. But here, what I would like to talk about is what is not lost is everyday experience of those who stay. Okay, for example, in a relationship, yeah, husband and wife are always fighting. You know, in that kind of family, normally you don't hear a woman just leaving her children and going on. Very rare, right? Very rare. There's always the man who leaves. So the wife who stays is the one actually who heals the wound that is created by the man, who heals the wound. She brings up the family. So that is the role that here Yashodra has taken. Okay, so here and what they're telling is she didn't do it alone. She had the help of other women and the sangha and all those things. I think as we go along, we can read a lot of things what is happening in that book actually. Okay. Yeah. One moment. Yeah. Okay. What they're telling is he who goes forth, she who stays, and then they who go forth together. No. So what I understand from there, solitude and community both must come together. Okay. Parts of awakening, both are parts of awakening. One begins alone, the other in the deepening of a relationship. Together, they form a complementary part. Okay, another thing I would like to talk about is the last one. Yeah, here the Buddha says, "Be a light unto yourself, seek your own salvation with diligence." Yasodra's last words might be like this, Sometimes sometimes you need the light of others to see the way. Sometimes you need to be in the light for others to see the way. And always the light will shine more brightly when two or more people are walking together, gathered in spirit. Okay. So what about shared path? Shared path is every day a doorway opens apart. There is neither right or wrong way. Sometimes it might be a dark night. We need to find out our own way, or the alone way. Okay. Sometimes we need to rely on another. Always we can share our light and find a new brightness in community, which will reveal to us what we are. So with that, I hope you all understand what I'm saying. So thank you for this opportunity. Back to you, Rajesh.
Thank you very much, Master Thila, to actually bringing the letter to the reader, and also the introduction on the Buddha's wife. I like the way you explain, how you go solitude and then you come as a community, and how you choose the middle path. And what I like to highlight here is this Buddha's wife is actually divided into two parts. The book one that we are covering now is actually about Yasodhara's story as the author imagined it to be, because there were lots of, it was like 2,500 years ago. So very, very limited story or literature that was available. So this is how they reimagined Yasodhara's life. And then the book two is how actually we as a community, the readers community, we can get spiritual friends, partners, and group, and then using the principle and practices of Yasodhara's story and offering it and offerings, and using that principle and practices and applying it to our modern way of life. So that is where we will reflect, especially in book two, understanding what are the healthy relationships with the community, which are not healthy, what are healthy, what is missing, and what can be built on what that has been left behind. So it's all like, how can a particular relationship become a doorway of opening to a larger human and greater human community. So that is what is all about the Buddha's wife, book one and book two. And it is recommended to actually read completely book one first before going into book two. So without further ado now, I would like to call upon Master Pathma to take us through chapter one and chapter two. Over to you, Master Pathma.
Thank you, Master Rajesh. Okay, I hope I'm audible, clear enough. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Um, we already offer our pronouns and gratitude to Brahmashri Pitamaha Patriji, Swandamala Patrijima, to Universe, and of course, Yashodhara and the Buddha as well. Okay, Masters, I'm going to share my view, my perspective, my understanding of chapter one in this book. Okay, the chapter one, the story starts, starts in a point of view of Kisa Gotami. It's like a narration form. Who's this Kisa Gotami? Kisa Gotami, she is a mother from a wealthy family, and she became a nun. And what made her become a nun? She lost her only beloved son, and what she did, she was not ready to let go of her dead son. So she was carrying his dead body for days, and she was trying to cure her dead son, and she was asking for help from many people, and one elderly man directed her to Buddha. And when she went to Buddha, Buddha told her to go to the village and find one white mustard seed from a household that never experienced death. So she started the quest. She, in entire village, she went from one house to another house, and begging for that white mustard seed from a house that never experienced a death. And eventually we know it's impossible, because there is a saying, Buddha saying that birth is uncertain, but death is certain. We don't know we'll be born again or not, but every living being that's already born, death is certain. So she got that realization that death is inevitable, and everyone has to experience death. When she come to that realization, that is her awakening moment, and she went back to Buddha, and she surrendered, and she buried her son, and she moved on and became a nun. Okay, so that is Kisa Gautami's story. So the story starts from her point of view, where she's saying that Buddha has gone with other monks far away for preaching, and then Yashodhara and Prajapati has summoned her to see her, and where earlier the day before they've met Yashodhara and Prajapati, where Prajapati was she's ill, gravely ill. So that's where the story starts. So when this Kisa Gautami and four other nuns went to visit uh, Prajapati and Yashodhara, so this is the conversation between these three people. Kisa Gautami wanted to know the reason why she was summoned, and Yashodhara and Prajapati barely speaks because she's gravely ill. But whatever Prajapati was trying to convey, it was actually conveyed by Yashodhara. Means they had this kind of a telepathic communication, where just through a glance, this Yashodhara could understand what her mother-in-law wanted to say, and she becomes her voice. And so it starts like this, where they shared about how Kisa Gautami became a nun. The story I told you earlier, and they say it's not just that where she became into a realization that death is inevitable. What brought that awareness? The shared grief. When she went to every household in the village, the common thing that they had is death, the loss of any family members, and the share of the grief. That's what she came into realization. I'm not the only one who's going through this pain, this suffering, this loss. Everybody's going through that. When you come into that kind of realization, you feel like you're not the only one. And that's what Yashodhara is telling. So what healed Kisa Gautami is this community, like what Thila Master said, this the pain shared by this community. So this what Prajapati urged Yashodhara is to share her pain, her suffering, what made her awaken this journey. Because like what Tilama said, yes, story of Buddha is the man who went forth, the person who moved forth, gone forth. But what about the people who stayed behind, who stayed there, and now she is moving in a spiritual path with the same man who was her first love, her husband, child to her father to her child, and now her spiritual teacher. So Prajapati, she wanted Yasodhara to share this insight to others, so that to those it will become something that as a community they can heal. Because when you are in the journey, those days, of course, they will leave the family and they'll go into forest, like what Tilama said, the men are the first one to leave the family and go. What about those people who stayed behind, and how they heal? So Yashodhara and Prajapati want this to become a support group, a healing process to those who stayed behind. Okay, so what Yashodhara and Prajapati, they were talking about how when actually it's a lot of things that I want to share, but I will try to summarize it. Chapter 1 is how they're going to talk about First, the story of Yashodhara, Yashodhara and Siddhartha Gautama Buddha before he became a Buddha. And then next is the moment of awakening on the path. And then finally, the wisdom of the teaching. Okay, so they here, Yashodhara start to narrate about the story where it's the chapter 2. Okay, in chapter 2, what we learn here is the story starts how Yashoda, when she was awakened with her newborn baby, and she realized Siddhartha was gone. It's normal for Siddhartha Gautama, Siddhartha just leave her without saying goodbye, but it's usually, there will be some gestures of loving gestures, to touch her cheek and say goodbye and leave. But was all sudden. It's suddenly, you feel like your world it's not there. The Gautama, Siddhartha was a world, and suddenly that world it's not the same. It's not there for her. Try to imagine this. For Siddhartha, it was already prophesied, after his birth, that he's meant to go in a path of realization. But what about Yashodhara? For her, it's like she meant to live a marital life, a worldly life, a family life. And for her, her husband was everything. Even though she was a princess, she was a devoted wife. They were married for 13 years. And she met at the young age of 14, and she met this guy and she fell in love, and he was everything to her. And then suddenly one day, one morning, she realized, that world has been shattered. She's trying to make sense of what's happening to her. She knows it's bound to happen, because it's ever since she knows Siddhartha. It's they got married at a very young age, so they are like they were growing up together. They're like play together, they read together, they share everything, they enjoy doing a lot of things together, and they're growing in the marriage together as well. So for Yashodhara, she realized that Siddharth was a different person. He was different than any prince, because they mentioned this one example where what actually won her heart. How Siddharth won her heart, captured her heart, was not with his all the prince thing. With the archery and with the lifting weight and all those things. That's common. That's, I think, in that time in Swayambar, every prince can do that. But what captured her heart was his nature, his compassionate nature. That what captured her heart, where he felt for that swan. Her brother Devadatta, Yashodhara's brother Devadatta, he actually hunted a swan. Sorry, did I say duck? Sorry, hunted a swan, and and the swan fell, and Siddharth went for the swan, and he saw that this arrow pierced the wing, and he could see the blood. And Devadatta and Siddharth was having this argument where Siddharth say, "I saved this swan, so it belongs to me. This life, it belongs to the savior, not to the person who tried to destroy it." It's so unlike of any prince, because in a hunting game, you hunt that animal, it belongs to the hunter. So Siddharth is a person with softness, with a lot of compassionate, and he knows. For others, of course, it's a weakness. For a prince, it's definitely a weakness. Imagine you go to a war and you refuse to kill your enemy because you feel towards your enemy, you feel compassionate towards your enemy. So Siddharth was so unlike of any prince. He has this lot of compassionate in him, and he knows that is his strength, and he stand by his strength. So this is what actually captured Yashodhara's heart, and all along the way, married to him for 13 years and trying to have child for 13 years. She knows her husband is a very different soul. He's evolved soul, probably, she knows. But yet It's a belief that probably her love could keep him together, stick together, they can have their family, build their family, have lots of children, and the husband can be a great king, and then the children, the son can be a crown prince. And then one day when she wakes up, it's just so happened that all her dream, it's not her dream, actually it was her reality has been just broken into pieces. And this is what in chapter 2 Yashodhara was trying to comprehend. And to be frank, actually this chapter 1 and chapter 2 is very, very short. So we are trying to summarize, not summarize it, to to say on our to share on our perspective. So this is, I've already mentioned chapter 1 and chapter 2, and I'm going to share in chapter 2 what I liked the most. When Yashodhara say where she and her husband, they love to read this together in the library, they read this chuvadi, ole chuvadi. In those days, they write in the bamboo shroud. So these mantras, even though the father-in-law, Sudoshana, the king, he forbidden the prince Siddharth from reading all this religious scriptures or spiritual scriptures, they sneak into the library and they read these mantras together, both husband and wife, and they enjoy reading that. And whenever they pick up a mantra, they recite it. Means, it shows in a way Yashodhara also, she's already in the path, but she was in this attachment, in this family attachment, this bound with this family attachment. And she enjoys doing with what her husband, to be a supportive wife. She was enjoy doing reading this mantras. And there was this mantra they mentioned, not this, if I'm not mistaken. They shared in here. One second. I am not that. Actually, it also means not this, not this. In I think Sanskritam, nidhi. It means I am not this, I am not that, I am not this. I'm not female, I am not Indian. It means the identification we are giving to this body. So many identification, but look at me, I can say that I'm this is my height, this is my size. This is not actual the identification of me. Who is me? Not this physical, this bodily identification. That is true trivial. It's your what I'm giving. This identification, this bodily identification is nothing but the identification of this soul that momentarily staying in this house. But what about the soul, the self? What kind of identification that soul has? That is the path of awakening. That's the path of enlightenment. And how do you describe self? How do you define self? It's such a big topic. Lately I heard this Ajay Ale. I'm sure all of you might have heard this Sikhism, Sri Guru Gobind Singh's Gurumukhi, Ajay Ale. My friend asked me for the meaning, and I went through the meaning. It was actually mind blowing. I was awestruck. It's not, they are talking about the self. The self is indestructible. The self is imperishable. The self is unbreakable. It's beyond the love. It's beyond the color. It's beyond the form, shape, karma, doubts, you name it. That is self. And that's how you define the self. So I was actually totally captured by this verse, I am not that, nidhi. So this is what I wanted to share by the given time. Hope I have done the justice.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Master Pathma. I think you have done more than the justice. Actually, I was like totally impressed with what you were sharing. I had to actually unmute myself because I was already into that story that you were sharing. I think it was a great storytelling. And I think what resonated well with me is you said, I'm not this, I am not that, which what you're saying, right? The soul does not have any identity, isn't it? Well, I mean, we actually, when we meditate, we're saying, who am I? What's my purpose? It keeps coming into my mind as well. I think it's a great sharing the way that you highlighted how that 13 years of marriage, how much of love that they both shared, and they were such a loving couple doing everything together, and suddenly after 13 years her dream was like shattered. And it could be so devastating at such a young age, and just after she had just delivered, what more, and how she had rebuilt herself. Indeed, it's such a really eye-opening and interesting story. And yeah, a lot of highlight was on Buddha, but not really on Yasodhara. But it's a good opportunity for us to actually reflect on who actually stayed back and had to hold the fort, and also overcome the grief at the same time. And I like in where we had the community to see there's a support mechanism to help each other. With that, I'd also like to open up to the wider audience to see whether you've got any questions or any further sharing clarifications. Yep, go ahead, Master Pathma.
Okay, me again, raising my hand. Okay, I want to share this. Okay, I've been listening to this one song. I love to sing a lot. So this one spiritual song. For Tamil speakers, they can understand this, but I will translate. It says that உன்னை கேட்டுப்பார் நீ யார் என்று உண்மை அறிவாயோ நீ எவர் என்று அவனை கேட்டுப்பார் நீ யார் என்று அவன்தான் அறிவானே நீ எவர் என்று means it's ask yourself, do you think who you actually are? No, you don't. Ask him. He knows your true form. And when I heard this song until I think 2 days ago, I thought that him, ask him, it was asking God or asking your guru. That's what I thought. I have to go literally to out of to go to temple or to a spiritual place and ask my guru or my God who I am. But actually the him, ask him, is none other than our own self. We might not know, this mind love to just clutter the truth. It will not let you connect with your heart. Your heart tells you, connects with your true self. But this brain, it loves to no, you're not that. You're not the true form. You are Pathma. This kilo, your height is this is your color, and this is how you look. This is you. This is all you. It does not allow you to see the grander picture of the self. This revelation I got 2 days ago. Until then, I don't know, I can't stop. I kind of feeling this kind of bliss. So I would like to just share that.
Amazing.
Excellent. Yeah, amazing. Yes, Master Thila.
Amazing. I was just telling her it's amazing. Yes. Um, you know, they always say, do not look for answers outside. It's all in you. Okay. So whatever question that you have, your overself will give you an answer. And I wanted to share something, but I can't remember what I was supposed to tell. I'm sorry, guys.
Never mind.
Yeah,
We will come back to you.
The book, regarding the book, okay? This book is actually based on the writer's experiences, and their surveys and all those things. But it's so relevant to our community now and to our place, our situation now. So I think all of us, especially women, especially us, we all should come as a community and do something, to heal ourselves. I think a lot of us are going through some kind of suffering or pain. And and not everybody knows how to heal it. So they say meditation will help. Yes, definitely it will help. But we women are always talking. For us, we feel when we talk about it, it will heal.
Mm.
Yes. So we must have that sangha where we can talk about it, where nobody judges you. Nobody, sometimes when you talk about this in a family, what happens is if something happens, they will bring this up, say, that day you say like this. So here, when we are actually talking as a community, the community doesn't bring this up in the family. Okay,
True.
so they don't judge you. So
True.
so we
True.
need that kind of sangha. So we should look towards creating that kind of sangha.
I think that's a great steer, actually, creating that sort of sangha to see that, there's a community around you to help you, a support mechanism, right? Like what
Yeah.
you mentioned. But I also just have another thought, sometimes when you read, they said, okay, go into you, you're not supposed to, because they say when sometimes I'm just sharing, they say when you talk about it, it's like maybe you're giving life to it, or, it's something negative, you're like bringing this up. But, I realized that as women, sometimes we just need to share that for a bit, and then we are okay. We just need to let out, right? To vent, and then we are okay.
Yes, Rajesh. What they say, you talk once, but you don't keep talking the same issue with everybody you see.
Mm,
That is where you are energizing the situation. But
yeah,
as demon, I feel as demon, we have to talk about it.
yeah.
We cannot keep, it's either I don't know. Some people are telling meditation is the solution to everything. Okay, uh, uh, sometimes I do ask, no, it's not. For especially for people who talk, we cannot keep everything in the heart. So when you keep everything in the heart, it becomes a disease. So you
Mm,
need someone to talk about it. So
yeah,
they say talk to your ourself. Okay, but at this situation, our ourself is not answering back yet.
yeah.
But
It takes
when
time.
our ourself is answering to us, then talk to yourself.
Mm, true.
Until then, we need a community, a sangha,
Yeah.
who doesn't
Uh,
judge us.
True, I agree with that, but probably there's also another perspective, Tilaka. Maybe when they said meditation can give you the answer, but maybe meditation leads you to the correct person that you can talk to,
Yes, that's true. That's true.
right? So maybe you can't
Definitely,
find,
yes.
maybe you're still not matured enough. Some of
Mm.
us are not matured enough to find the answer by yourself.
Mm.
Maybe through meditation, you get the link or connection to someone that you can talk to or share, who's able to help you further.
Agree, agree. I totally agree with you. And the universe will give you the right person to talk to. Have you noticed that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It happens, yeah?
Yeah. So sometimes the answer comes a different way, right? But maybe
Definitely.
true, not to you.
Mm.
No, really a very interesting topic. I'm afraid that we have exceeded our time by 3 minutes. And with that, I'd like to thank especially Master Thila and Master Pathma, and also our humble pronouns to all masters here for this excellent sharing and very insightful session for this Friday. Thank you so much once again. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
I think, Vinima, you can end the session.